What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 337. My name is Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts. As always, I'm joined by
Ron
and John.
I like the little variation there, Ron. I liked it.
Yeah, I tried, man.
And for those watching on the YouTubes, your eyes said everything I needed to hear and see when you said your name this time. What's up, guys? How you doing?
Pretty good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I just got in a sparkling water, just a new thing.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, it's a very new thing for me.
Don't tell me.
I'm serious. Yeah, man. It's a fairly new thing to me. I've
tried multiple versions of those things. Like Erin, I think she's trying to convince herself that she likes them still, but everyone that I've tried, I've just not enjoyed. And then she puts everything that she can in it to make it taste better. And I'm like, at that point, why are we drinking this? Let's go actually drink what we want to drink.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I do want the snap of something carbonated. And if you get it really cold, as long as it's not the kind of bitter one, but if you get there's some that taste pretty good, but there's not much there. But sometimes it's it stops. Sometimes it's how if you drink water, you realize whatever it was you were about to do instead of drinking water was unnecessary. Like you're thinking you might eat a couple donuts and then you drink a glass of water and you feel so much better. And you're like, you know what? I didn't really need those donuts. My body was craving something more real.
Yes.
I think sometimes just I can trick myself. The thrill I want from a cold can of soda, which is one of my sad addictions. I can sometimes squint and get that from a sparkling water in a can that's really cold. But I agree, Steve. It is sort of like a kidding yourself thing. Like when a friend of yours that's vegan talks about, oh, this stuff tastes just like bacon. And you want to say
no, it doesn't.
That's great that you have found something that makes you that happy.
Right.
But, you know, I don't eat bacon anymore either. But I'm saying I still know it. It's the stuff I've eaten that's fake bacon. It does not taste like bacon. It just sort of, it resembles something salty that you remember, you know.
Yeah. No, don't get me started on that whole conversation because I battle with people about that all the time. Things are evolving though, things are getting better, but I know that some of the things that people point to and say this tastes like such and such, I know it doesn't. Because it's not able to tell the difference.
You're like, I've had chicken recently, so I kind of will. But it doesn't mean it doesn't taste good, you know. Sometimes
right. That's the key. It's just a different version of good.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're right. There's some of these things though, it's getting better, I think. And I'm not
burgers
vegan.
are
I'm not a vegetarian, but I don't eat a lot of red meat, but we try those Beyond Burgers and the Impossible Burgers and things like that.
It's packaged raw meat. The one if you've gotten that one, if you make burgers out of that and season it up, it's like Jesus. In some ways I like it better because it tastes this good, and I don't have that added grossness I sometimes feel of eating an animal product.
Yeah. I mean, I straight up tricked my mom into eating one. She didn't even know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she didn't know that it wasn't what she thought it was. You know what I mean? It's that close now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple. I'm into this place called Slutty Vegan that's located in Atlanta. They come up here every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Their burgers are nuts. And there's one more place. I'll get this off my chest. It's Hemisphere Burger, or it's like a mountain burger. It's you ever
Elevation?
heard of this place? Elevation Burger. Have you had their
I have
burger?
not. No, I know.
Steve, I don't know what kind of Beyond Burgers they use. They have a special formula that they use. They I don't know what this. It's not like the regular Beyond Burgers. They have some sort of
somehow get some umami in there. I don't know. Something's in there.
I don't know, man. Some dust on it. They put maybe cocaine or something like that.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Food. Oh, food's good.
Yeah, man. It is.
All right, man. Well, I guess we kind of talked about it before recording, but this is going to be a pretty straightforward episode. We've seen a couple things. We finally have all seen X, which is had its theatrical run, it seems, and the windows collapsed, and it's coming out in the video on demand digital platforms. By the time this episode airs, it'll be available. So I figured we'd talk about it a little bit. John had talked about it briefly before because he saw it in theaters. So we're going to touch on that a little later in the episode. But John, why don't you talk about the other kind of relatively new release that you were able to check out in theaters?
Well, yes, this closes out, I believe, my picks for South by Southwest. This was a movie that
you
was at
did
South
it.
by Southwest. I finally saw all 3 movies that I picked, but this is in theaters everywhere now. It's everywhere
awesome.
all at once. But it's the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once by the Daniels, the directing team that brought us Swiss Army Man, which is, if you saw it, you know, one of the most unusually, like, emotionally affecting movies that you can imagine. And this movie is set up much more clearly to be kind of... It was making me think of a Pixar movie even before this movie makes a swing and makes a very huge Pixar reference that it then takes from a joke to turning it into something else. But I think that's what this movie does with a lot of things. It takes a joke. It's like the fact that Daniel Radcliffe played a farting corpse in Swiss Army Man. And that's where that movie starts, is with that, you know, that could be a joke. Little sidebar. I was just thinking about how, to my son's generation and kids maybe a little bit older, Daniel Radcliffe was such a big part of their childhoods as Harry Potter. I had not really thought about like what it would have meant to me if, when I was like 15, Harrison Ford had played a farting corpse in a movie.
Right, yeah.
Or if Mark Hamill had done that, you know, and it just made me think about, A, what a great time to be alive if you're a kid, but also Daniel Radcliffe's acting career. I think it deserves, maybe we should delve into it at some point. I think that him as a topic is pretty interesting. Really the whole Harry Potter crew, but him in particular. He seems like very interested in really taking the sort of career success that he had with Harry Potter and just saying, now I get to do whatever. But to the matter at hand, that's the kind of movie they made, a movie about a farting corpse that will make you laugh and cry and worry about the corpse, which is a funny thing to say. But I think this, Everything Everywhere All at Once is much more set up to be like a Pixar-like movie where the concept of it is very just emotionally affecting, just right off, a sort of overworked, stressed out, modern, relatable, very recognizable woman with a teenage daughter and a husband that's, you know, doing the best he can, but not maybe shouldering all the weight that she is. So it's something very familiar to a lot of homes across America, I think, and the world, I suppose, too. But like taking that character and saying this is one version of a multiversal being who's had a lot of lives. I think right now our culture has accepted that moment in a kind of mainstream way because so many movies and so many things have played with it. But this is that sort of cool thing of like, oh, what if somebody took that idea, but they weren't making a comic book movie and they weren't doing a property. They were saying like, what about the human story of that? And what does it mean if you take a person you know, like look at the person in your life and say, your significant other, and say like, okay, how would their life have been without me? Would it have been better? Would it have been worse? It's one thing to say like, I don't know, assuming that maybe there's like a fork in the road that you can think about, but that there are so many branching universes in your life. This movie really plays with that idea that there's an infinite amount of versions of you. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I'd read somewhere that the Daniels, which, by the way, that may sound like a weird thing to call the directors, but it's 2 guys named Daniel. It's Dan Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. I read that they were originally approached to do work on Loki for Marvel, and that they passed on that and then set their minds to this. And it's really interesting to think of directors going, oh, we could play in the multiverse of Marvel, or we can do our own multiverse idea. And that they then were just like off to the races. I mean, we know from Swiss Army Man how creative they could be filmically and stuff. And I think this movie really looked like it fulfills the promise of that movie and then some in terms of the emotional heft, as far as like, what will people this creative think of? There's one line from the movie that is... maybe come back to me in a week and see if I still feel this way. One of my favorite lines ever in a movie. I don't want to say it right now because I feel like it could spoil a turn in the film. But, this movie is crazy and wild, and it asks you to sit there and kind of parse a lot. Somewhere in it's 2 hours and 12 minutes long. Somewhere in the last half hour, like a lot of these kind of action adventure movies that we see, it gets a little tangled trying to get you where it needs to get you emotionally for the ending. But the ending is so satisfying that when you get to the end, you look back and you go, you know what? I'm glad we went on this emotional journey. Michelle Yeoh, who has always been great, basically experiences everything a character can experience on film in this movie in some way. You know, we kind of go through her whole life. And if you are a fan of hers, this is something, I don't know if she's been speaking much about this, but this feels to me like a character that she hasn't gotten to do in a kind of movie that she hasn't done, as far as I know. So there's just so much to say about this, but really after you guys have seen it would be probably the time to really dig into the themes and everything, because I wouldn't want to ruin the fun. I would say that it definitely has that Pixar thing of when it gets to the big emotional moments, you kind of know what they are, you feel them coming, but they feel very well earned. And I just don't think you've seen it done this way before. And shout out to Short Round, Ke Huy Quan. I hope I'm saying that right. The actor from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, who I don't know if I've seen in much except for that and Goonies. He is excellent in this. Like, he's kind of the heart of this movie. Like, Michelle Yeoh is playing like an ordinary person who kind of finds their movie star self across the course of this adventure, but he plays like just the sweetest, best guy. I don't know. There's just something about that character and the stuff he gets to do as an actor. It feels like more than he's gotten to do before as well. So, I highly, highly, highly recommend this movie. I will say I saw it with my 14-year-old son too, and he at the end said it was great. I loved it. I mean, it's that kind of movie that people of almost any age. I would say there are some sort of adult jokes in it, so I would say maybe 14 might be the youngest I would recommend letting see it. I don't know how people's kids are with like dildo jokes and things like that, but my son's watched Peacemaker, so he's been broken in by that kind of humor. But yeah, I really can't wait for more people to see this and for it to just become part of our vocabulary. There's some kind of iconic things that it does. And Jamie Lee Curtis, I should mention her too. I don't know that I've seen her do this type of thing either. She's really kind of playing a disgusting, monstrous kind of person, but even that character gets room to have heart in a movie like this. So,
oh wow,
yeah,
that's really cool.
I found like it's the kind of thing like, yeah, I mean, it seems like the word on it's very, very positive. Even like, it's got a great audience feedback, it seems. But it's really interesting to see how they've rolled that out. Like it's one of those movies where they did like a really small release for like 2 weeks where they had like really high per theater averages, kind of like what Licorice Pizza did. And over the last 3 weeks, it's kind of gone to like a pretty wide, like a full out wide release. Like as the time that this episode airs, it's like across, I don't know what the screen count is, but I mean, it's like one of the top 3 or 4 releases in terms of screens, which is crazy. Cause I mean, it is kind of like I don't want to say it's a smaller movie because the scope of it sounds huge, but it is one of those movies like, that it seems to kind of get that groundswell. Hopefully people find it. I can't wait to see this for sure.
I just saw the budget for it is $25 million, which is insane for what they pulled off. Like when there's so much practical
everybody
stuff.
says, yep. Every review kind of points that out.
And really creative fight choreography, which is another thing that you sort of, I don't know, even the best of a lot of the kind of action movies we see these days that are just full of CGI and, you sort of tune out sometimes the fight scenes. Like every now and then they'll be done so well that you really notice them. Like I remember in Shang-Chi, we all felt like the fights in that were part of like the emotional power of that movie. But so often that's where it's pixels versus pixels and you're not invested. And this had a lot of really fun stuff, both for these actors to do, but just the way, like, this one guy gets socked with a very funny weapon and he just goes flying through the air, like twirling around in the air. And it's just like, they don't miss an opportunity to like push it, you know what I mean? Visually and in terms of what they're doing filmically. So, I guess I'm just saying, even if a person thought this movie had flaws that they couldn't get past, I think the creativity of it would keep you invested just to see what they're going to throw at you, because they keep adding new ideas late into this movie.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, man, I cannot wait to see that movie, man. Cannot wait. With A24's release cycle, it's like, I feel like because this has a little more buzz, it feels like it's not going to come out quite as fast as the movie we're going to talk about in a bit. But
yeah,
I'm so excited about seeing it. I'm really excited. I might buy a physical copy of this movie. Like, that's how bad I want to see this. I bought a copy of Spider-Man, probably going to buy a copy of this movie. Because they do it really big with A24 releases now. Like, they have like these like kind of it's almost made out of tweed. These tweed sort of. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
Oh my god, man! It's like these bookcase releases. So I think I'm gonna probably look into that, man. I love Michelle and I love what the Daniels do. So it's exciting.
Cool. Well, you kind of gave us our transition there, Ronald. The so yeah, A24, because they did that one too, right, John? Like they did that's their title. And now going over to X, which is it seems like this is the kind of thing where both having debuted at South by, it's kind of crazy, like the different ways they choose to release movies, the planning behind it, the windows, again, the theatrical windows, they're so different. And some of these studios have that flexibility, it seems, where they kind of let it happen and see what happens and then kind of go with it. Like X came out not even a month ago, and and like I said, this is available now through a video on demand. And even earlier in this week, they did like a special kind of digital screening of the film on Tuesday, which they've been doing for a lot of their films. Like I know they did one for like The Green Knight, and they did one for like Zola. But it's kind of like their last hurrah, it seems, before they go ahead and let it go out digitally for rental or for purchase. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that we finally got to see this, because the buzz around it was really positive, especially in a lot of the people that I follow, like on Twitter, like the horror people that I really kind of value a lot of their opinions. A lot of horror filmmakers were kind of praising this film, and especially because Ty West like hadn't really made a film in a while. He'd been doing a lot of like TV episodes and series and things like that. So I was very interested to see this movie. And I don't know, what did you? I know Ron, John, you talked about it before, but like Ron, what did you think of it?
Yeah.
So Texas Chainsaw is the first thing that comes to mind when I saw the trailer and everything everything from the location, how it looks like it was shot, and the subject matter, and the age group of the people there. But it's almost like it took that as a base understanding of what horror was, and it elevated it in some cool ways. Like, it wasn't perfect at all to me, but I was engaged. It was a slow burn movie, like John said. I remember specifically him saying that, and me being mentally preparing myself for the slow burn, which isn't a bad thing when I hear him say that. Right. I'm like, okay, well, that just means that I'm gonna have to wait a little longer to get to the crazy, the stuff that'll make my heart race a little bit. And the world building that it did, you're just kind of stepping into the world, and these characters heading towards this place that they're staying at. I started to like every character, even the ones that didn't talk quite as much. I was invested. So when the chaos happened, I was like, man, this is effective enough that like I'd show it to somebody else. I'm probably gonna watch it again. And I thought that it was shot in such a cool way. That those like really far away shots where you're watching something happen from a distance. Like I haven't seen those since like 70s horror films. Like, just having something happen very far away and just letting it breathe. Like those shots were like 2 minutes long. I fucking love that stuff. It let everything breathe. And so when the chaos started to happen, it felt so like, oh my God, this is fucking their lives up. These people are getting hurt. It feels, So in the end, with the ending that it had, and I guess we could talk about that if we want to spoil it down, at the end. But I thought it was solid, and I want to see what Ty West has next for this whole world. I was impressed. I did not know why I liked it so much. I can't put my finger on it. It was funny. It was gross a little bit. It was the some of the characters that were introduced are like, what the fuck is happening? Like, you're looking at their faces like, what? Aaron, the whole time Aaron's looking at one of the characters, like, this is crazy. Like, what is happening with this character?
You're talking about the makeup on certain characters, because I thought that was an interesting choice that I still am trying to figure out what the reason for that choice was. But I think I get it. But I also wonder if there was more to that. Maybe Maybe if they continue this movie with prequels and stuff, it'll make more sense that certain characters are wearing makeup, you know.
And it's only one thing that bothers me about that prosthetic. It's not even that the prosthetic looks bad. It's like we've been around people that were a little older, you know, like
they don't look like a melted candle.
Not just that, but like the way they move. Like a person that's 80 isn't going to pick up something like this and then put it. That's not how it works. Like everything is kind of labored and it's joint pain and it's like none of that was considered for the physicality of this.
I think that's an interesting thing, Ronald, because I thought about the same thing with regard to this, and I was like, was the point that these old people were unusually like, because that can be scary, an old person who's unexpectedly strong and hale and hearty.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Or was it a choice based on what they might need to do with certain actors, or even just what they expect certain actors to do in this movie? It might be easier to say, let's just get an actor who can do stunt work and put makeup on him, rather than have it shift back and forth between an old person and a stunt person. I don't know. So I could see a lot of reasons why they would do that, and I didn't know if you guys had. And obviously, we want to hear your thoughts on the movie, but maybe you guys, what do you think the reason for that choice was? What was that?
Steve, I really want to know your opinion on this.
I mean, I really liked it. I mean, I don't know that I don't know that I loved it. Like, I thought I might get knocked out by it just from what I had been reading, without like kind of trying to spoil anything for myself. But yeah, I mean, I thought it looked amazing. I really liked just some of the way it was shot and some of this, the blocking. And you had mentioned like some of those faraway shots. That there's a shot like when Mia Goth's character is in that lake, and you kind of see the gator kind of coming up. Just an amazing shot, and not just an amazing shot, but like great setup for stuff that happens later in the movie. And I think that's one of the things I liked most about it, is that like at the core of it, it's really just like a slasher movie, and a pretty gnarly one, and pretty violent. And there's a lot of conversation happening earlier in the movie, little like lines of dialogue or like set pieces that you see that really do set up what becomes of some of these characters, in terms of the way they're killed. So I like that. And I liked pretty much all the performances in it. I think it was cool to see Kid Cudi actually have like a character to be in a movie. I saw he was a producer on the movie too. But
he was good. I mean,
I really did think
a believable guy,
movie,
like in this world, the 70s, and he's playing the kind of stud in the movie. I thought he had a believable kind of guy who was like maybe kind of thinks with his dick. No pun intended in this, or no joke intended in this movie, because it does have like dick jokes in it. But I just felt like there was something kind of endearing about his character. Like he was like kind of a sweet lug compared to what you might be expecting from like the lead in a porno film. But he clearly was, very confident in his abilities, and just didn't consider that anybody could be acting, and I thought the movie was very frank about that side of it in a way that movies aren't off. I mean, a lot of movies would film around a porno thing, and they would sort of skirt around some of the things that this movie kind of dives into, which is like the dynamics of just people that are actually gonna fuck in a minute. You know what I mean? They're hanging out right now, and they're not like boyfriend girlfriend, but they're gonna have to do this, and we're gonna set up the camera, and you sort of believed the scenario as heightened as it was.
Something that really struck me was like the women in the movie. Like they didn't feel weak or like victims in a way before, obviously before the craziness started. But there's like a lot of like cool stuff about dynamic, like I guess there would have been this version X in 1970. All the women would have been like, "Oh, you broke my heart because I love you and you don't love me back," and the dynamic would have been different.
There's one character who kind of has that role of being the heartbroken one, and I think you're right that they did. It did feel like they were playing around with like who's the most sensitive or who's the most vulnerable here.
For the most part, they totally dominate the film. Like,
yes, and the twist
women,
the twist that happened in the movie had nothing to do with the murders, to me.
Right.
Well, you're right. That twist that happened fucked me up worse than any murder that I saw. And you could feel the tension kind of What? Like, this is cool. This is cool because it's empowering, but god damn it, this is gonna shift the dynamic of this whole crowd. It's just real cool stuff like that. It's a fun movie that I'd probably watch with more people. Like, it feels like a crowd movie, It's weird enough. Like, it has like the sex and the violence and the setup. I'd watch it with a couple people. I feel like I'd show it to, a friend or something and be like, okay, this is, you probably like this. Gets a little weird, but yeah, you probably like this.
But I feel like once it, like you mentioned when I'd asked you what you thought of it just before I watched it, like it does feel like I don't even know that I so much thought that it was slow at all. Like but I do agree that like once it hits, it really just runs to the end. Yeah. And which I actually thought was pretty awesome. I liked how it picked up once once you get the first kill going. And I feel like I also really appreciate it, like when those kills are happening, like there's nothing being hidden at that point. You know what I mean? For the most part.
Yeah.
Like all the cards are on the table and you kind of like suspect certain things. And it's like, I think that's one of the things it does a little, I don't know, differently, but I think that's kind of the angle that it's going, is that like what we can see that doesn't look right is not right. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's really what comes through and is like what's happening. And I love that first kill, brutal, the way it's shot and like the color lighting of like the headlights of the car, little things like that. And I think honestly, like that's where a lot of the Ty West stuff, I'm kind of mixed on some of his films, but I mean, I can't deny that he does have some interesting, ways of shooting certain scenes. And I think there's a handful of them in this movie that in some way feel like very classic like horror setup and shots, but like some of them feel kind of fresh and different. And specifically that first kill stands out to me. Especially because there's a couple setups with that character that felt like a bit of a misdirect, and then for it to happen the way it does, I thought it was pretty cool, actually.
Well, I mean, I think you're right, Steve, that it's exactly what it looks like when they pull up and you're like, well, this isn't going to go well. It doesn't go well in the ways that you thought. And I don't think so much thinking that the movie's a slow burn and thinking it's a slow movie. I think you're right, Steve. It's not that it's a slow movie. And I was even going to say this earlier when Ronald was talking about the slow burn. It's like you tell someone a movie's a slow burn, not so much to make them think, oh, it's going to be boring in the first part, but to let them know that there's some point where it's on. And that's kind of what you were alluding to, Steve, is that like there is a back half or back third or whatever it is of this movie that is like, oh, now it's on. And it doesn't stop from that point. And at that point, the sort of creepiness of the scenario, it kind of ebbs and flows depending on the staging of the kills. A couple of the kills I thought were so sudden that it was like, oh, that wasn't a scary, like the first kill that you were just talking about is a scary moment as well as a gory moment and a sad moment. Some of the other kills feel like, oh, the punctuation of this moment is just boom and the character's dead, and it doesn't have that sense of making you sort of feel it. And in fact, if I was going to criticize something about the movie, I would say, and I think I even said before, that I had wanted maybe the creativity of the kills and the memorability of the kills to be as like the first one is the most memorable one, I guess. And maybe you want that, but I also think sometimes you look back and you go, okay, well, maybe the one with the girl in the water is pretty memorable. I mean, there's different ones that are memorable, but for different reasons. But so, I think it's just, it's visually interesting. And as you said, that helps you. You mentioned the long shots, Ronald. There's a shot of her just walking back and forth in between the two houses that is like, it takes the time to kind of make you understand the staging of the place, but it's just like a long shot of someone walking in a field. All of that stuff does feel like there's something that Ty West is doing that like he has something on his mind, or he has something that he's doing on purpose that is very creative and different in this movie. But the ways that it does fall into the rhythm of, as you said, Steve, just like a solid slasher movie. I think horror fans, I think we kind of like that. I think that almost gets more points than you would think when a movie just dares to be, let's throw characters into a creepy scenario and then pick them off. You don't really need too much more than that. Now, this movie does try to give you a little bit more than that, but you don't need too much more.
I like that the superpower is just deception. I'm a big fan of, like, I love supernatural killers, but I also love just deception being it. Like, just like being quiet enough that a person can't hear you, or like not being seen in a space. Like I'm so good with that. I'm actually better with that than like somebody lifting somebody up by their neck and talk.
Yeah.
You know, that stuff is so weird to me. Like, you know, I like the way that it handled it, and it's that you're right. There are the kill I think you're talking about. I kind of love if you're talking about the one I think you're talking about. When you said a boom, I'm like, if that's
this movie has a couple boom deaths in it. There's one boom death that is like, oh my god, that was unexpected. That's different from the one I'm thinking. Well, there's a couple booms. This movie has a boom and a kaboom, maybe.
Yeah. So one thing that's super weird. So one thing that's really interesting about it is and this is not true of every movie that I watch. So the movie volume's about here, right? So it forces you to kind of turn the TV up, right? The deaths are here. Yeah. So what winds up happening is by default, it doesn't matter what the kill was. In my setup, I didn't watch it downstairs. I watched it in the living room. Still, because every death was loud, I was automatically like, holy shit. It didn't matter. It didn't matter what the death was. It could have been somebody hitting the corner and a loud boom from that. Crack. It scared the shit out of me. And I love that about it, man. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That feels like a 70s horror trick too, just to be like, let's just ramp up the, you know what I mean? Almost when something crazy happens.
Yeah, man. I enjoy it.
I feel like they all have that sense of like suddenness to them. Like none of them really have that long, with the exception of maybe the first one. But even that, when it happens, it's like sudden. And you know, like all of the kills in this movie have that element of not surprise, but it's so sudden. Like there's not like somebody being chased down and they finally get caught by the killer, you know, as in most slashers. You know, I feel like all of them happen, and in most cases they're happening in exchanges between the characters and those doing the killing.
Right.
You know, it's not even like they don't see what's around them. Like they're literally you know, interacting with another character that is going to be their demise, which is cool. Like again, I didn't love it, but I did really like it, and it is something and something that I would definitely. It is one of those that I would like easily rewatch. Like I would put that on, no problem, and I would recommend it for sure. Because it does feel like, you know, we've gotten some really good horror movies recently, you know, and I want to just try to amplify that because I just want more. So like if you're slasher, like everything that's being said, slasher, even the Texas Chainsaw, you know, comparisons, Ty West, it's just the cast is great. We didn't mention Brittany Snow, Martin Henderson. They're I think everybody's really good in this.
Martin Henderson is funny. I love that he just like, what is he wearing, like cowboy boots and like bikini briefs at one part?
Yes. He's great. I love him. I love
that character would do that. They'd be like, you know.
Of course he would. Yeah.
And then later Kid Cudi kind of has a similar moment where he's like, well, here, let me put some underwear on before I leave with you. You know, that's a pretty funny moment, the silhouette moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's, you know, I don't know if you're going to find it in theaters. I actually tried to find it. If it was still playing anywhere around here, it's pretty much pulled. So if you can, it may be in a theater by near you. I will say, like, we won't get into the spoilers of anything, but the digital release that we were able to see is not, or did not have the post, the teaser thing in it, in the post-credit sequence. So I did seek that out in other social media channels to find it.
Excuse me.
Did you see it, Ronald?
Not yet.
I have to send it to you. Okay, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
What did you think, Steve? I thought it was like, when I was walking out of the theater, it kind of wrecked the vibe that I had been, the movie left me with a vibe, and that kind of made me feel funny about, like, okay, well, I guess I'm interested, but it didn't really fit the way I felt at the end of the movie, if that makes any sense. Like,
so yes, I agree with that. And I'll say my first response to watching it was like, I thought maybe it was like one of those fake trailers that played during Grindhouse.
Yeah, it felt like a joke.
Like that's what it felt like to me, but apparently it's not. And it's like a real thing that may or may not come out soon. But I don't know. Just to say, if I don't know if it'll be available, elsewhere, or if maybe the movie's not so great performance. I mean, it wasn't made for a lot of money, and I think it did in the teens box office so far. I think it'll do really well on VOD, actually.
I think so too. I think people are curious about it for the same reasons you said. It's like horror buffs are going to be curious about what Ty West is doing back
totally
in the genre. And I don't know how many people are like me that maybe liked his first movie or two and then sort of cooled on him. But this does feel like it's inching back towards that feeling of why you might have found this guy exciting if you're a horror fan.
For sure.
But it's not like a total home run. But I don't know. There's a lot of movies that we enjoy that are not total home runs when it comes to this genre. So
yeah. So yeah, it's on demand by the time this podcast comes out.
What else did anyone see?
What else?
I just wanted to talk about another A24 film. I think we talked about it, or maybe I talked about it slightly before. The Sean Baker movie, Red Rocket. Man, it's one of it kind of snuck up on me, man. It's a movie about like a former porn star starring Simon Rex, like a guy that can't do anything right. Like one of those people, you meet somebody like can't do right. He can't get himself out of this situation. And he basically goes back to his hometown, and his hometown has his wife and his family, and he is still kind of married. He has a drug addiction. It's a strange movie, man, but it feels like very lived in. It feels like his other film, The Florida Project. The way that, that movie just feels like a slice of life. It feels like a slice of life of a former porn star who's bigger in his mind than he ever was, and is trying to get himself back out into the world, trying to make a name for himself. And he has an idea of recruiting a woman that he thinks is really pretty, and he kind of falls in love with. He's like, I'll get you into the business of porn, and we can rise to the top together. And that's like the craziest fucking premise for a film ever. It is. But it works somehow. Like it works. His love interest is played by Susanna Son. I haven't really seen her in much, but it's a real special movie, man. It feels very like worth checking out if you want to feel a little dirty, but you don't want to actually jump in any dirt. Watch Red Rocket.
It's like a porn theme with X, like there's a porn thing going through these.
I'll keep it going. I was going to mention Minx. I was going to say
another porn.
Let's keep this train rolling.
Yes.
Yeah. We finally got to checking this out. I've heard good things about it, and anything Jake Johnson's in, I try to watch.
He's so good.
But I think it's another kind of, I don't know, notch in the belt for HBO Max or HBO Originals. Like, I think they're really doing something special there. I mean, I know HBO has that reputation, that history in terms of the quality of their, the series or the documentary, all the stuff they put out. But this is like another one that I just think that the Max Originals are like just consistently. I mentioned last week, like them and Apple, like the series are just like so solid and so good. But yeah, we finally got around to watching Minx, which I think the finale, the final 2 episodes are out now. I haven't watched the final 2 episodes at the time of this recording, but we kind of went through the first 8, and I kind of love the show. I mean, Jake Johnson is one of the only actors I really recognize in the show. I'm trying to think if anybody else stands out.
Lennon Parnham is on there. She's a
improviser. That's right. She's the sister. But yeah, Lennon and Jake, I don't know, but it's basically just this story about how this feminist kind of pairs up, trying to get her own magazine published, kind of pairs up with Jake Johnson's. He's a porn publisher, and kind of make their roads cross, and he helps her get her magazine or her views out, and she helps him kind of crack the code in terms of getting into a whole new market for magazines geared towards women with like male nudity and things like that. So the show is really funny. It's again like that 70s theme, the way it's shot, the way it looks, just some of what we mentioned about X. is in the show as well. But yeah, I don't know, just a really entertaining, really funny, and it's got some heart too, it as well, which I think is just like a nice mix of everything. But for me, really, like Jake Johnson, I wish he was in it more. I just love everything he's in. But
yeah, he's great.
Just another great series, I think, and definitely a definite recommend for me. Again, that's on HBO Max. The all 10 episodes are available at the time that this podcast will be coming out.
Cool. You just may have set, like, we're looking for another show to binge over here, so that sounds like
I think you both would love it, man.
It's so good. I'm like 4 episodes in. I try to watch at least 3 episodes of every HBO thing that comes out, but we were kind of saying at the rate that they're putting out stuff, it's hard to keep up. Like, they are pumping these things out.
It's crazy. And I mean, like the lead in it, her name, what's her name? Ophelia Lovibond. What an amazing name. But she's great in it also. I don't really know her I don't recognize her for anything, but apparently she was in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. She played that character Karina.
Karina.
Oh, was she the one like that he was with before?
Yeah.
Like the story got started. The one he forgot was on the ship. Is that her?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, she's great. She plays the lead, Joyce.
She's so good.
Yeah, she's really good, man.
I knew I recognized her from somewhere when I saw that image. The series image. That makes sense.
Yeah, her and Jake's dynamic on screen, like, so good, man.
Him playing a 70s porn publisher feels like, okay, yeah, right. I mean,
it's like peak Jake Johnson.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah, I would say their relationship is great in the show, but him and his like secretary assistant Tina in the show, like their relationship is my favorite, like in the show. They're so good together. And if you've only seen through 4 episodes, you probably don't see it quite yet, but it really kind of develops.
It gets better. Okay.
Yeah, like they're so good together.
Yes,
but yeah, what else? What else, guys? Anything else you want to mention or having watched?
I think that's it for me, man.
Next week, Batman is out, right? Or The Batman is out on.
Yes, I cannot wait to talk to you guys about it. I haven't seen it.
I'll just tell you guys a funny thing. My son went to see it the second time with his friends. He got together with a bunch of friends to go see it. And he said, it was fun to see it a second time, but that his friends weren't as into it as he had been. And so it felt kind of long by the time it was over. But what I really loved about it was he told me that one of his friends said that it was mid. But another of his friends told him it was heat.
I love that word.
It was heat. It was heat.
Yeah.
Oh my
it was
God.
like, yeah.
Mid is such a funny name.
I know. I just thought it was really funny that those are the two of the reviews are mid and heat. Yeah. It's like, I'm not as cool as these 8th graders. I could never have put it that succinctly,
I can't wait to watch it again, man. I'm like so pumped I'm like trying to build Erin up. Like I want her to be excited to watch. She's a little like hesitant because it's a little, I don't know, the way I described it to her, it's like a little heavier, a little darker.
Right.
And she doesn't really like love that, but I mean, I think that's why I loved it. I like, the more it sits with me, the more I love it.
I think it's interesting that it's more dark, in some ways more grounded, but if you read the comics, it's more like the comics than the Christopher Nolan version. So in a weird way, I feel like I was misled by all it's the darkest, it's darker, and even the marketing, because as a fan of some of the comic stories it's pulled from, I felt more at home with its treatment of the character, rather than like it's being pulled more towards like the cool zone of like being made into a movie. But it's just it's just the fact that some of the best Batman stories are sort of like crime stories, so they do make themselves into grounded movies reasonably well, so anyway, no, we'll talk. I'll say all that again next week when we talk about
we should definitely finally talk about it. We didn't really spend too much time on it.
I didn't see it. I'm so excited about. So it's the 18th or the 19th? Is it going to be on
Monday?
HBO?
I think Monday on HBO.
Why Monday? That's such a good. It's great that it's on a Monday.
I'm pretty sure they said Monday. The thing I saw.
The 18th.
I think it said the 18th. Yeah.
You know what else comes out Monday?
Such a weird day to release. What comes out Monday?
First 2 episodes of Better Call Saul's last season come out Monday.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about.
We got some fun stuff next week.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right, cool. Anything else you want to mention, guys?
I think that's it, man. For me, at least.
I wish this was like Severance, and I could just blink, and it would be next week, and we'll be talking about the stuff we just
turn off our podcast part and just come back on. Movie.com is the website. You can hit us up there, find all the past episodes. You can stream the episodes right on that site, or jump into your podcast platform of choice to subscribe, get notifications for future episodes. And obviously we do have a YouTube channel as well. If you want the video experience, the visual element of the show, you can go to the YouTube channel. What is it, Ronald? YouTube.com/
Movie Schmovie Podcast.
Movie Schmovie Podcast. Only one time though. Yeah. And if you subscribe there, trying to build that subscriber count, go ahead and subscribe, hit that bell, get that notification.
Look at our pretty faces when you listen to us.
You'll be able to see what I referenced earlier, which is Ronald's face when he said his name at the top of the episode.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are the little delights you get if you hit up the YouTube channel. All right, cool, guys.
Tell that I need to trim my beard. That's something that really should have happened before this, but no time. No time.
You only have so much time, John. Yeah. You only have so much time. Cool. I'll see you guys next week. As always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.